It goes back to school, right? Our school days when we were taught creativity was like, only for artists or, musicians or people who were born to do that, right? But really,
or art class.
Art class.
That
It's only
class,
for art class, nothing
exactly.
else, right? We can't be creative in any other, places in our life. But really, the reality of it is that we can be creative at any point in our life. Anything. You can be creative when you're talking to somebody. You can be creative in your movement. You can be creative in any expression you'd like to have. You can be creative with art as well. There's so many different expressions of art. And, through fiber arts, through painting, through, voice, music, those kinds of things. It's just really infinite. It's really amazing. So those are great outlets. And what I like to switch it up from time to time and focus on, one way of expression, and I'll switch over when I'm ready to a different way of expression. And but first, my personal hurdle was really getting to a place where I could imagine, something I really wanted to do, because I had I call it like using your imagination muscle.
You have to train it just like anything else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we just don't. And I think I would say, especially this past 2 years, we there's this term called amygdala hijack. And it's when your brain goes like into a fight or flight mode and you have almost like blinders on, right? It gets stimulated through fear. And there was a book called, I believe it's called Emotional Intelligence, is where that term came from. Mm-hmm. And so many people have been in that. And so, but when you're in that kind of mode, in a fight or flight or survival mode, you're not able to be creative, right? It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, therefore we got to get ourselves out of that survival mode in more of a calm place to be creative. Mm-hmm. And my advice would be just to start imagining possibilities first. You can write them out. You can meditate on them. The sky's the limit. It really doesn't matter. I remember when I first started really working my imagination muscle, I put limits on myself around it. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why is this so hard to imagine something I really want? Mm. And I realized it was because I was putting myself into this small box of reality. I wanted to stay safe. I didn't want to go outside that box because I was like, I want to limit, I didn't want to like put myself out there. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to look stupid, or be judged. And that's a totally normal thing for most people. But what that does is it stifles our creativity. It stifles our gifts that we are meant to share with the world. It stifles our true essence, really who we are, by playing small. And, again, we all have our timing on that when we're ready to play bigger. But my best advice to my clients, especially as it relates to their body, and if they're trying to go through a change, like what you described, you have to use your imagination to visualize a new body, right? A new way of being, a new energy. So the energy that you're taking on has to be different than what you left behind.
Right. And I think to your point, it's definitely taps into like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, though. And you, as you mentioned, that, we can't really be that creative and have that strong access to the sense of play and feeling that imagination when we don't have our basic survival needs met. If you're in pain, if you have like chronic back pain, there's nothing more distracting than pain. Like, forget it, and even if you are probably like me, like how many times have you heard people say, I eat a really good diet, but, it's like, well, then you're not, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I say. Like, if you're not getting the results you want, you have to have an open mind to do it a different way because something's not working. Are you on any medications? Are you overweight? Can you sleep? Do you have bad skin? Do you have bad breath? I mean, all these things are feedback from our bodies how we're doing. They're our report card. And no, it's not your genetics. We know by epigenetics and all the research done now that it's the expression of the genes and how you live your lifestyle that pulls the trigger of that gun. But to your point, I think we're at a very interesting time in like humanity as a collective, in that many of us have our basic human needs met: shelter, virtual safety, I guess is a relative term, safety. But, we have enough food on the table. It might be crappy food, but there is food on the table, clean water right now. But to access these higher realms of self-fulfillment and being like, creative in, what do I want to do with my life, and having the ability to feel like you have agency over that, is kind of a, what's that saying? It's a first world problem or third world problem. Yeah. That saying, like it's a luxury to really have that ability, because if you don't have your basic foundational needs met, you really can't go there. So that's why our work is so important as holistic practitioners, that we recognize that we have to bring it all together. You, I'm sure, recognize as a coach, you have to get your client's diet dialed in first, so she's thinking right or he's thinking right, because those molecules are made by food, the brain chemistry, and et cetera, et cetera. If you're not sleeping, I know I don't like myself when I'm sleep deprived. I annoy myself. Everything annoys me, so all of it goes together. And I sure am not going to feel like painting if I'm too tired, or, I'm hungry. I can't focus, so.
Yeah, you can't address the spiritual, even emotional stuff until you really get a good foundation, like you're saying, of food and fitness in there. And then you can address that stuff on more, and being more grounded, but it's really hard to address the emotional, spiritual body without getting the physical body, healthy first.